Yes, you read the title correctly. We're going to be doing all of it too. Now, Sonic is my favorite franchise, so when I was planning this video I knew it had to be big. I'm just going to be playing these games in Sonic Origins, mainly because it'll make things go much faster. You know, I don't have to respawn at the beginning of a zone if I get a game over, which you know will happen a lot. I wanted to keep this intro very short. No, this is not part of my icon ranking series. This is the start of a completely new one. Anyways, let's get into ranking every classic Sonic zone ever. And thank you guys for tuning in. The first game in this extensive journey is Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for the Genesis. Now, this is a good game, but in my opinion, I think there are plenty of things here that aggravated me, such as level design, the pacing of the game, and loads more I'll get into when we reach that point. It's been a while since I've last played this game, and I'm excited to see if my views on it have changed in any way. I guess there's only one way to find out. Okay, this is it, where it all started. I remember this zone being a nice and fun one, so I'm glad to say it was even better this time around. I think that it had to do with me realizing how much this zone plays into Sonic, so I have a newfound appreciation for it. But as for the zone itself, well, I'd like to clear things up first. I'm going to be ranking these zones based on a criteria. These criteria include level design, how fun it is to play, how well it fits into the game it's in, uniqueness, and the music, of course. You guys know how much I like music. Anyways, I like the location here. I've seen it a million times, but credit where credit is due. It's some lush green hills and some mountains and waterfalls in the background. It also has palm trees, so that's a plus. Now, it is the first level, so its main expertise is trying to teach the game to you. You have slopes, loops, tunnels, all that jazz. It really makes playing it fun and fast-paced. Enemy placement is reasonable, there not being too many magnets in the first place, and it's an overall vibe to play. Traversing through it could never be easier. It is something to note that this game has 3 acts per zone. For this zone, the acts are really short. It makes for the best level in this game to go by way too quickly. This music is also really good too. I do enjoy remastered versions of it better, but it really does complement the visuals in a nice way. Another thing though is the third act. You see, the act starts you off here, and you have 2 different options. The first option is to go up here to this top spot, and your second option is to jump onto this moving platform that is just out of eyeshot. Now, the only reason I'm pointing this out is because it can be easy for beginners to get confused. Anyway, that's all for this zone. What else can I say that hasn't already been said about a million times? It's a classic, and a very good one at that. Now, it's time to move on to the next one. So, Marble Zone is a strange one. It's only the second level in this game, but the strange thing is that it feels a bit too difficult. I wasn't really the biggest fan of this zone to begin with, so to go back and play it really cemented the fact that I didn't think it was enjoyable. It really is just a slog to get through. In the last level, that one was all about you going fast. You know, things Sonic is supposed to do. But here it feels like I'm moving at a snail's pace. I constantly have to wait for stuff to move. I don't want to wait for stuff to move. Seriously though, it does get on my nerves. The third act essentially suffers from time. The first act is actually kind of fun, but after that things get bad fast. To get a bit more on the positive side though, I do like how the zone looks. It's like the same ancient ruins or old civilization. The surface looks green and natural while the underneath feels dark and mysterious. It's all nice. Originally, the zone was supposed to have UFOs in the sky, but that was later removed before the game's release. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a zone that uses this gimmick. And I think the music complements this very well. It's mostly calm, but if you listen to it deeply enough, it starts to feel a tad eerie. However, that's where the positivity stops. The track in this zone is good, but you have to listen to it for such a long time. Each zone is like 3 to 5 minutes, and so you're listening to it on loop for like 10 to 15 minutes. And I personally don't think that's a good of a song. It has some variety, but even that gets old. There are a lot of tricky parts in this zone, and just when you think an act is about to end, it just keeps going. The boss battle in the first zone was good and simple. I remember playing this for the first time and getting really annoyed at how difficult it was. Then I came back the next day and realized things were not as hard as I remembered them being. Anyway, the funnest part of this level is knowing that you don't have to play it anymore once you beat it. It's a slog. You'll see a pattern in this game that zones have loops tend to be better than the ones who don't. Marble Zone is obviously going under Green Hill. I hope things get better from here. Spring Yard Zone is another odd one. I like it, but at the same time I feel like it suffers from some of the same things Marble Zone did, and after playing it I feel like I've got my thoughts all sorted out. Okay, first, I like how this zone looks. I did not know what it was back then, but now it's clear that it's an old rundown carnival slash casino slash amusement park covered in greenery. At least I think so, I might be wrong. But this zone does look nice. The copper, green, and purple main colors of the zone give it a distinct feeling. A feeling which I think is complemented by the song. This zone's theme slaps. I was not expecting to say that in this video, but the song does have a strange feeling to it. It's like the people should be here, but nobody is. Huh. I don't know, the offbeat should make me put it down, but it just really feels energetic, which a song for a Sonic game should. Anyways, as for the level itself, I feel like the main gimmick here is springs. I mean, it's in the name, but these springs launch you around everywhere, and it makes it hard to control yourself. Some of the gameplay is a bit repetitive too. You are going faster most of the time, but there are moments where you have to slow down, like for these moving block platforms. It's annoying. I also think that the enemy placement here is a bit unforgiving. I still don't know how to kill these spiky badniks, but that's not too much of an issue, for me at least. But I can see why someone with less level knowledge as me struggles to a degree. Overall, this zone is much better than Marble Zone, much better, but still fails to reach the bar that is Green Hill. But for what it is, it's a solid zone, not bad actually. Some parts are annoying, but that's the problem throughout this entire game. It's just a curse, I guess. Also, this is their first attempt at making, in quotes, casino level. It's not their best attempt, but at least this set the ground for what to expect in the future. I'll be placing this zone in the middle of the list for now. One of the better ones in this game, unfortunately. The last level was good, so that means the next one should be the best one yet. Unfortunately, I've played this game before and I know that's not the case. Labyrinth Zone is without a doubt the worst classic Sonic zone of all time. I know it comes very early in this video, but it's true. It has to be the biggest slog ever. Okay, like I did for Marble Zone, I'd like to start off with the positive things about this zone. But don't worry, it'll go by very quickly. The first thing I actually like is the music. Something that in any Sonic game, mostly every game, stays good. I like how it feels like it captures the vibe of a labyrinth well. Just not this labyrinth. It sucks by drowning underwater and struggling to find air bubbles, only to hear this stupid song in the background. Also, yes, remastered versions of the song are better than this version. Another thing I like is the atmosphere this zone gives off. You really do feel trapped in a maze and soaked underneath the water. However, that's where the good things about this level stop. Trust me, I know you guys have heard people crap on this zone enough already, so I'll spare you the unnecessary backtracking. If you played this level before, you already know what I'm talking about. But these are the worst parts of the zone for me, starting off with the first one. It's very clear to me that I don't like the boss battle, if you can even call it that. You have to be super precise, and the game punishes you if you're not. Once the water catches up to you, you're done. There's no escaping. There's absolutely no way of coming back after that. Another part about this zone that I don't like is these stupid buttons you have to press. While underwater, you're in slow motion. Pressing these buttons takes up tons of time. I'm glad I was not trying to get 100% on any of these games, because if I was, getting a Chaos Emerald in this zone would have taken days. I genuinely don't know how I was able to beat this thing in an hour. Fun fact, every level in this game was given to one person or a team who could work separately on their given zone. So whatever team worked on this zone is now on my top 10 least favorite people of 2025. Okay, I think I got a little riled up last time, so now it's time to calm down a bit and just relax. This zone is probably my favorite in this entire game. I know I said Green Hill could not be top, but after replaying it, it's safe to say that it's the best, and I know that it won't be controversial. This is your treat after you go through the hell that is Labyrinth Zone. I cannot stress enough how good it felt to go through this thing again. The music is so calming, and kinda hard to explain. It just evokes a feeling I can't really describe to you. If you know the feeling, comment down below. It is so calm that I had to listen to it to fall asleep for a while. Writing this video makes me stay up well into the early hours of the day, so listening to this while falling asleep really helped. This level is really fun. I love how it looks, just a quiet city at nighttime, while you're off in the distance at some part of the city under construction. I love it. There are thankfully loops and slopes and tons of areas for you to go super fast, but then also some calm down and soak you in the tunes. Some enemy placement can get a bit annoying, but that's a problem this game has in general. If I'm being honest, the boss is the best one too. You actually have to strategize how you want to attack, and something about this zone really makes me drowsy. I actually went a bit slower for the second and third act, because I wanted to embrace my time with this thing as much as possible, but I knew it wouldn't last long. Scrap Brain Zone is the most unhinged level in Sonic history. I genuinely cannot describe it in any other way. It is the final zone of this game, so it's rather difficult. The zone has tons of enemies, death pits, traps, things that crush you, and an overall vibe that makes it the most menacing zone yet. I actually like the atmosphere this zone presents. You start the game off in a lush green area and make it to a dark polluted power plant or factory base, whatever this thing is. I think that the gradual progression in terms of machinery in this game is good. That's something I like about Sonic in general. Anyways, this zone is not that good. First of all, the music is pretty good. I know, like I said, this zone isn't good, but after listening to the track, I can say it is one of my favorites from this game. It is very forgettable, which I can't understand why people don't like it. It feels very industrial, eerie, and sort of alien-like. This zone has tons of enemy spam. And I hate this part where it feels like every time you do it, you're gonna get crushed. Also, the bottomless pits really get on my nerves. Part of the reason why I don't think this zone is that bad is because of the level progression. The act structure is pretty neat actually. You start off outside in the first act, then with the second, you make your way inside. But for the third, Eggman lets you fall into the abyss. That heartless prickly vine. But the third act is what really drags this zone down, because Act 3 is just a recolored version of Labyrinth Zone. Who in their right mind would do this? Apparently they were running out of time for development, and so they had to repurpose a level for the final zone. Wow man, that sucks. They couldn't have chosen a different level to repurpose? I mean, it makes sense story-wise, the scrap brain being built on top of ancient ruins. That's cool and all, but seems more like lore added at the last minute to cover up the laziness. It's not too long, thankfully, and once you're done, you can enter the final zone. I'm not going to be counting final zone as another zone, as it still takes place in Scrap Brain. All it is just the final boss of the game. It's very underwhelming and not too difficult on its own, but when I first ran through this game I struggled with it a bit. Anyways, once you beat Eggman, you finally beat the game. This zone is not very good, but at its worst, just the second to worst. Trust me, it has its merits, but the bad definitely outweigh the good here. Also, did you know that this zone was originally supposed to be called Clockwork Zone, but the W was not showing up? So it's spelled Clockwork Zone. Now, I don't know why they chose Scrapped Brain Zone, but if we were jokingly looking at it, I'd say they used the scrappiest ideas in their brains for this zone. Anyways, time for the overall ranking for this game. I hope it's not too controversial. So that was a fine game. It was nice to go back and revisit this old relic. My opinion has changed over time, because my old ranking looks very different from the one you guys just saw. Sonic 1 definitely has some things wrong with it, like pacing, speed, enemy placement, and a balance of overall difficulty. But it was the first game, so I can't blame it too much. However, it's time to jump into the next game, and I think you know which one it is. Okay, we're taking a bit of a detour here. If you've watched my other video on Sonic CD, then you'll know my thoughts from this game, and if not, then I encourage you to go check it out. The core of this game is time travel, so I'll be adding that as a ranking criteria to this game specifically. It is more of an obscure game, but I count that as a mainline classic Sonic title anyway. And without further ado, let's get into the first zone of this game. Let's just hope we don't peak early. I did say this in my other video, so this is a bit of a spoiler, but Palm Tree Panic might just be my favorite zone in this game. A lot of people say it's Stardust Speedway, but we'll get to that later. But this zone really captures everything. Sonic CD's zones are like Sonic 1's, but different enough to be a whole new location. Palm Tree Panic is Green Hill, Collision Chaos, Spring Yard, Tidal Tempest, Labyrinth. You get the idea. But you know, Marble Zone's buddy was forgotten. Anyway, the reason I like this zone so much is how open and free it feels. I really like the aspect of its level design and something later forgotten in the game. I love the vibe this zone gives off, and both tracks used in it are awesome. I really do enjoy listening to them. There isn't much else to say, but since I left you guys hanging last time, I guess I'd talk a bit more more about it. So each level has 4 different variants. This includes the past, present, good future, and bad future. Each keeps a theme and are essentially recolors of the level, but I thought I'd go over my feelings on some of them. The past looks clean and pastel. I already talked about the present. The bad future looks bad, which is what it's supposed to do, so I guess it's good. And the good future looks like the present, but with more mechanical parts. Overall, Palm Tree Panic is a great start to this game, and I'm excited to see where the next one is on the list. Spoiler, I already know I've played this game before. Collision Chaos is one of those zones I tend to forget about. It gets surprised whenever it loads up next in game, and I think its quality has to do with that. First of all, what is the location supposed to be here exactly? Another casino in the forest like Spring Yard? Because if it is, then it's not only looks much better, but also has a ton of energy. I really enjoyed how Sonic City's environments always felt like alien worlds. It really quickly separates itself from other classic games. Anyway, I'm not the biggest fan of this zone's level design. I like how there are no loops. I mean, I don't like that. There already are a huge chunk of points removed from this. I do understand there are some slopes and tunnels, but they aren't loops, sorry. Dang, I wonder how controversial this ranking is gonna be. Please don't attack me in the comments. This video took me 2 months to make. Anyways, a lot of enemies in this zone are pretty forgettable. I don't even remember a single one. I could look it up, but stop writing, I'll lose my flow. I got a good flow going here. The best part about this zone is the music. I like all the tracks used here, and I like how they all keep the core beat, making everything feel neatly knit together. But this zone's worst atrocity has to be its boss. I hate this thing, it sucks. You have to go through this dumb pinball looking area, which is near impossible. Then you'll pray you'll be able to hit him, it's awful. Anyway, the zone at its core is fine. I don't hate it or anything, but it's a large step down from Palm Tree Panic. Level design and the boss mainly being what takes it down for me. But the music, environment, and everything else in between makes it a decent level in my opinion. Sorry if this one felt too harsh, I do like this game to a certain degree. Tidal Tempest, being another water level, is supposed to be a counterpart and improvement to Labyrinth Zone, an infinitely worse zone. I will say, for an improvement, it really is one. I think the greatest thing about this zone is the environment, and how the music creates a vibe of unforgettableness to me. The music in the US is very different to its original track. The JP version is more quiet and soft, while the US track has a bit more funky tune and backing vocals. How do they fit vocals in the 16-bit cartridge? Besides the music and the cool level environment for all 4 variants, this zone sadly peaks there. I do think that the pacing is a lot faster than in Labyrinth Zone. There are many more paths where you can completely avoid the water, and when you are underwater, there are much more air bubbles, and the level design is overall more forgiving. I think that the boss is also pretty engaging too. I like how it starts off kind of like Labyrinth's boss, but instead of going up, you're going down, which is much easier. Not only that, but you do have to try and hit him, because if you don't, you'll just go in an infinite loop until you hit him enough times. Once you do, you can beat him by hitting and bursting the bubble. It's fun. The good future recolor of this zone looks really nice and is probably my favorite variant out of Tidal Tempest. There really is a lot to like here. However, for it simply being that amazing, I'll probably compromise and put it in between Palm Tree Panic and Collision Chaos. I think it's a good way to solve it. Quartz Quadrant is a very rare case where it may be fighting for the top spot. I thought I was dead set on Palm Tree Panic being first, but after playing this zone, I think my thoughts have changed a bit. But let's get into the actual zone before assuming. The first thing we're going to talk about, like many others, is the environment and what it has to offer. In this zone, you'll find yourself in a darkish cave full of crystals, gems, and minerals, as well as having moving conveyor belts. When you move outside, where you can see a waterfall off in the distance, as well as the ground now being much more mechanical than the inside, this zone offers a ton of variety, even on only one variant. The inside and outside makes this zone feel much more expansive than some of the others. It feels like an actual area, not a video game level. Trust me, there is a difference. I also really enjoy the bagnicks in this zone. Much more memorable for me. You do have these snail guys, these other guys. Look, I know they have names, but I just don't feel like covering them right now. I do also like some of the other time variants in this level. I think the blues and yellows of the good future are nice, the mellow tone of the past, and quick hastiness of the bad future. All of them are great. The only not good thing is the boss battle. I think it sucks. It's super easy to get hit. I like the conveyor belts in this level, and I like how this time Eggman is defeated by his own machine. But really, it is just for the boss. Another problem I have with this zone is getting lost. I know it's definitely a skill issue due to me not playing this game all that much, but getting lost does suck. I also think this zone uses its conveyor belts to its advantage by letting you, the player, use them to go fast and go to the past. I'm feeling present in my mysterious ways. Aboard rap. Wacky Workbench might rival Labyrinth Zone for the worst level in classic Sonic history. The floor is bouncy, and that is pretty much all you need to know. End of discussion. Just kidding. I actually have a lot to discuss. The first thing I want to talk about is, you guessed it, the level design, the music. The track used in the US is really nice beat and feels something Michael Jackson would make. I know he worked on Sonic 3, but hey, you never know. This song was made to appeal to a more American audience, so maybe that's why I like it more. Wacky Workbench's gimmick is the bouncy floor. If you land on the floor or any part with the texture on it, you're screwed. It'll send you all the way up to the top of somewhere, and you don't even know where it will take you. This gives the player a challenge. Stay off the ground at all costs. But sometimes you need to use the bounciness to increase speed to go to different time zones. I guess that could be a risk and reward situation, but it's still not fun. Again, I feel like this game suffers from not handling its own game loop very well. However, you're not casually playing it, then the floor is just annoying. Some of the enemies' placements also suck. The only good thing about this zone is the little loop thingies that you can go around multiple times. I think that's fun. But as everything in this game, those are few and far between. I enjoy the Good Future's color palette, although it's really bright. Overall, this zone suffers from its own mechanics, and if you were to take out the bouncy floor, it's just boring. Not even to mention the boss battle. Anyway, Wacky Workbench is a bad zone, and a decent Sonic CD level at that. It failed at what it was trying to do, and even though it looks cool, the music is fire, the gameplay itself ain't looking too hot. Stardust Speedway is probably going to be one with the most controversial spot on this list. And to break the news early, for this game at least, it's in third place. But let's get back on track, shall we? So, the music for this zone is probably my favorite in the game, because it's pretty darn good. Although, thinking about this zone makes me realizing how Mania improved literally everything in this zone. Anyways, I'd like to keep this zone's review short and sweet, while also making sure I tap into what this zone really means for me. So, the first thing I wanted to check out was why the level used its design to amplify the game's time travel mechanic. And in my opinion, it's very messy. There are tons of springs and tunnels and speed boosts launching you all over the place, making it easy to gain enough speed. So I guess it does the game's mechanic well, right? Yeah, but that's not the end of the story. You see, all these things are a normal play, just trying to get through the darn thing. They are going to have a rough time. Sure, go ahead and call it a skill issue, I don't care. Unsubscribe or dislike the video because sorry about that. I just get really mad because of this. And no, this is not a skill issue on my part. I just don't like playing this level because there's no clear path I'm supposed to go. I always get semi-stuck during Act 2 because of how undirectional it all is. The game wants you to time travel. It's the whole point of the game, but it also wants you to make sure that you don't do when you easily traverse it without feeling you need to at all. Okay, I got that off my chest. I do think the best part of this zone is the race between, you guessed it, Sonic and Metal Sonic. I think it's pretty fun and still a bit challenging for me, kinda, but no, really, it is just fun. It also puts some closure on the Metal Sonic and Amy biz for this game, which is neat. All that I like. I also think the past is the best looking time zone. I just like the quiet peace and greenery covering the place. It feels very subversive, something I've always liked about this game in general. But after that, this zone can be very annoying to play. And since I'm experienced enough, it isn't for me, but I'm sure the majority out there may struggle with it. Yes, I did play all these zones before writing this. Anyway, I hope it wasn't too harsh, and even if I wasn't, the comments for sure will. Metallic Madness is the final zone in Sonic CD, and boy, is it the last level of all time. I like this zone, it's pretty fun. I've always enjoyed the mechanical Sonic levels more than natural ones, just because they look cooler, I guess. Also, the name Metallic Madness is much more memorable than Scrap Brain Zone. Seriously, who thought of that one? Sure, the spike placement in this zone can get a little heavy, but if you're an experienced pro gamer like me, you should be able to get past it. I also like the past, present, and good future color palettes at this level, but not the bad future. That one sucks. The final boss for this zone is also not very good, because it's supposed to be the send-off to the game. All you do is lay 4 hits on him. This essentially makes him the easiest boss in the entire game, more so than the first ever boss back in Palm Tree Panic. Also, I dislike the third act a bit. It's much more confusing and difficult than some of the other zones in the game, and even some final levels. I just don't think it's very fun. Again, everything this zone tried to do was done infinitely better in Mania, and I'll stand by that. So, that was Sonic CD, and let's move on to the next game. So, our next game is Sonic 2. Keep on going back and forth on whether Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 is better, so I guess I'll have to find out right now. Okay, I'm back, and without further ado, let's review every zone in this game. Emerald Hill is the first level in this game, and it's a mighty good one. Some say it's imitating the success of Green Hill Zone, while others like me say it's the start of a new frontier. This zone takes place in a lush green area close to a nearby beach. It has palm trees, loops, corkscrews, these things, and the badniks all have cool designs. This entire game takes place on a different island than the first. Sonic 1 was on South Island, and this game is on West Side Island, a much bigger landmass. I have to say, Sonic 2 may just be the most fast-paced classic Sonic game out there. Sure, Mania would be a close second, but I don't know. When I was playing the game, I zoomed through it in under 2 hours, with breaks counted. Anyways, Emerald Hill's music is really awesome, and completely captures the vibe of the game. It's trying to go for. I also think the boss is a bit too easy, but hey, it's not that big of a deal. Chemical Plant is usually where most people playing the game stop. The difficulty curve in this game is a little strange, as I think it levels harder than both Aquatic Ruin and Casino Night. However, for an experienced player like me, I have to say this is one of the best zones in the entire game. It has everything, from slopes to loops to springs to launch pads. Everything's constantly pushing you forward. Not even to mention the soundtrack, because it's a bop. I'm sure you'll know what Chemical Plant sounds like though. The high energy tune complements what's happening on screen fantastically. The enemy placement is really nice. If you're not careful, you'll get hit. It never really feels like it's the player's fault, at least not completely. Usually the second zone in one of these games is a letdown, but I think this is the start of that not being the case anymore. Also, the background and the aesthetic of this zone just really looks cool to me. I'm honestly surprised they chose to have a mechanical themed level so early on. The boss is also fun, but could be a little difficult for new players. Also, drowning in underwater death pits may also be an issue, but those are just minor inconveniences at this point. If anything, Chemical Plant is a perfect follow-up to Emerald Hill, and further cements the phenomenal game that you're about to witness. It may not be the top zone in this game, but in saying that, you know there are some true gems out there, just waiting to be played. Okay, this is Aquatic Ruin, Sonic 2's water stage. Now, this zone could have easily fallen into the trap that is bad water levels, but instead, it did not. The worst thing about water levels like Labyrinth Zone was that it was slow, and in a Sonic game, you want to go fast, right? So, taking that away is not a good mix. I've already talked about that zone, but here's why this zone gets it right. First of all, the zone lets you decide if you want to go underwater and face a little bit more difficulty, or stay on the top of the level where there is no water, but more enemies and platforming challenges. Yes, this zone gives you the freedom of choice, and as we all know, humans love the freedom of choice. Sure, Tidal Tempest attempts to do this as well, but this zone has loops, slopes, and you name it. It still offers a fast-paced energy as the first two levels, while offering more choices and exploration for the player. The only thing I was skeptical about this stage was the music. Now, don't get me wrong, I liked it, but after listening to it, I thought it sounded kind of weird, and for the longest time, I made myself clear that it was the worst track in the entire game, but after a while it started to grow on me, and eventually I gave into the turns where it's truly amazing. One of the weaker tracks, but still great. It's no chemical plant, but it sure is a blast. I don't really like some of the enemy placement. I think the boss is creative, and these stupid vines and greenery moving with the camera on the top annoys me, but it's a great zone otherwise. Casino Night is what Spring Yard and Collision Chaos were aspiring to be, except this time it actually worked for me. I think the main thing about why I think it's the best is the liveliness. Spring Yard felt a bit empty and like you were the only one there, and Collision Chaos straight up just felt like a video game stage. But this zone's emergence is top notch. You can see a city in the background and there's tons of stuff going on in the foreground, accompanied with the sick tune of the level soundtrack. There are also tons of little tiny Easter eggs hidden around the stage's design, like the little Sonic and Tails tokens. I used to think the zone was too much, but as most things go, I grew to like it. The level is constantly pushing you forward, but there are many different pathways for you to take, and with each playthrough, you can take a new one. I like some of the gimmicks used, like holding down to wind up on this spring or these slot machines. Dang, Sonic, I didn't know you were into gambling. It truly feels like a casino, and everything comes together to make it interesting. Also, the boss is probably my favorite in the entire game. You actually have to use Sonic's momentum to attack Eggman. It took them long enough, but they finally did it. Overall, this is the best zone yet, and things will probably get better as we go on, unless the next zone we get to is a little bit of an odd case. Spoiler alert, it is. Hilltop Zone is without a doubt the strangest zone in Sonic 2, and here's why. First of all, and most obviously, the level structure is just the recolor of Emerald Hill. Now, I don't think this was to save time, but it definitely comes off as lazy. First of all, I like the segments in the zone where the lava starts to rise, and you have to escape quickly. I vividly remember playing this a few years back and not being able to pass it. The music is also something worth mentioning. It sounds really just not good, but I've grown to like it somehow. Can someone please tell me how that works? Even if it is just a slightly retextured of Emerald Hill, the background with the clouds and cliffs and even some of the trees used make it a little bit more unique. I like some of the enemies used here too, like these dinosaur ones in the lava, the little ball guys too. I like how they brought back this mechanic from Starlight Zone. God, the reused texture is really getting on my nerves. I'm looking it up. So it says here that Hilltop Zone and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 uses a recolor of Emerald Hill's ground primarily for visual consistency and to establish a thematic connection between the two zones. Sure, co-pilot. Anyway, the zone is really fun to play. I always sort of forget about it as it doesn't stand out as much, but even the boss here doesn't really add anything new. It will be going towards the middle of Sonic 2's list, but as for the overall ranking, it will be going towards the second half of all the zones I went over so far. Good level! Alright, we're at Mystic Cave Zone. You ready? Now, Mystic Cave is a strange one. Remember how I said during my Chemical Plant review that this game was a weird difficulty curve? Well, this zone further cements that opinion. It is much more challenging than all the previous zones, and for me, it's both weird for new players, but fun for experienced ones like me. I find the level's gameplay to be super fun. I like jumping on these vines and having a blast trying my hardest not to get crushed by these boxes. I don't even enjoy these stupid lantern flying badniks because it's hard to hit them with their small hitboxes, and they always come in bunches to attack me. The music for this stage is top notch, not to mention how it, once again, complements the zone's aesthetic. Mystic Cave really aims for a spooky vibe. We don't usually get that in a classic Sonic game, so having it here makes it much more special. I will say though, there is a hidden area in the zone, and if you fall into it, you enter a completely new zone. Hidden Palace. Hidden Palace was originally supposed to be a scrap zone from the original Sonic 2. However, a game developer finished this zone and found a way to implement it into modern ports. And so, the death pit that once kills you now sends you down to this cool looking area. Dang, if you were already in a cave, then how deep are you once you've fallen down here? This zone looks really cool, like the parallaxing background and golden brown colors of these bridges. God, the bridges are so satisfying. I also like some of the badniks here, like the jellyfish or these dino guys. I think that the cave has cool designs. I also enjoy the music, but it's not the best track in this game. The gameplay is fun, and like Aquatic Ruin, you can almost completely avoid the water segments. However, even underwater, you're going pretty fast. There are also these cool tube thingies, and everything has a nice flow to it. I genuinely don't know why it was scrapped. Maybe the aforementioned developer, you know who you are, made it actually good? Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the biggest woe of this zone is the boss fight. It's a creative and fun boss, but it used to trick me so much. You have to let Eggman drop these bombs on you, and then wait for water to rise. Then he blows on his trumpet, and a huge spike ball falls down. You now have to guide him to be over the spike ball, so when it sets off, he is struck and falls down. Now you have to use this short window of vulnerability to attack him. That was a lot. Anyway, this is a fun zone. I'm glad I remembered where it was during my playthrough, and it definitely enhanced my experience while playing. Anyways, on to the next one. Oil Ocean is the best, worst zone in this game, and I have a lot to say about this one. I enjoy how the aesthetic looks. It looks oily and super sweaty there. It also looks like taking a breath could instantly give you lung cancer. The music, while not the best in the game, is still a vibe and fits really well with the atmosphere they created. The color palette is cool too. Purple, gold, and green contrast well against the orange hazy sky. I think this zone offers a lot more difficulty than we've seen before. Okay, I need to rant for a sec. The first 5 zones all around the same, right? But then, starting with Mystic Cave is where the difficulty actually starts to ramp up. Don't you think it would have been better if each level was just a little bit more challenging as a gradual escalation? The developers were probably making the zones as speedy as possible, and then realized they needed to make them challenging. That's just my theory. Anyway, sorry for the detour. This zone is a fun mix of challenging platforming and fast-paced section. I really enjoyed it whenever I could go to these cannons and blast around the stage. These stupid octopus enemies were on the bane of my existence. They suck. Their player detection is so wonky. I especially hate it when they feel the need to be on the high ground. Also, there is nothing worse than falling into the oil and not being able to resurface. That must hurt. Why am I brushing this off? The boss battle is similar to Hilltop, but interesting with actual phases in the fight. I always die a few times, and for new players it can be a struggle. Not even to mention the one in Mania. Anyway, Oil Ocean is fun, but one of the weaker entries in this game. In any game in general. Okay, I think we found our new bottom 5 zone. It's no mystery that Metropolis is the worst zone in this entire game, or at least one of the bottom 3, along with some other ones I'll get into later. The first 2 acts, let's face it, are a good challenge, and they offer some fun secret areas and difficult platforming section. But the third act is a complete nightmare. This time around, unlike Scrap Brain Zone, the third act is not a recolor of a previous zone. Thankfully, it's still Metropolis. But the enemy placement in this stage sucks. We have the starfish guys who shout out at you, the crabs who extend out their arms to try and attack you, and the worst of them all, the prey mantis guys. They suck, and they have these dumb boomerang slicers and incredibly wide range. But what's there to talk about that hasn't already been said? Also, why this zone out of all levels to give an extra third act? One thing I liked about the game was that it started the trend of 2 acts per zone, but this zone misses the mark because of that. The boss is also not much easier than it should be. Why am I complaining? Once you get past that, you have cleared the biggest slog in the game. Despite me being very negative, I won't lie and say this level looks bad. The dark greens and coppers of the stage work well with deep red lava and machinery. I also think the music here is really well implemented. Now, originally I wasn't going to include Sky Chase Zone, but I said that I was going to do every level, right? Well, I didn't include Final Zone from Sonic 1 because that was a boss, but I'm counting it here because it's an actual stage, even if it is just for story purposes. When you think about it, all the levels are meant to progress the story. Anyway, the first thing I wanted to get out of the way was the visual. You're up high in the sky, so all there really is clouds, nothing special. However, the music is really calming. It's like a quiet before the storm. I really like it. This zone is short, but feels like a long time since it's a side scroller. It's not too difficult. All you have to do is make sure your rings at all times. Dying and having to redo the stage is the worst possible thing to happen. I was playing the Sonic Origins version, so it didn't really matter to me. That's all for this zone, and of course, it's one of the bottom 3 for this game. Not offensively bad, but still not good. Moving on to the next one. Wing Fortress is an actual level, and no, I am not going to be marking it down for the fact it only has one act. Instead, I'm going to be putting it down because of the level itself. This stage is over a huge death pit, and if you fall down, you're cooked. It's pretty easy despite that, and the worst part is this one is that their platformings keep disappearing. It took me like 10 minutes to figure out how to get past there. No wonder why I hate this zone. Anyway, the level still allows you to go fast as it has some slopes, but the main focus on the enemies and platforming. The one thing I will say is for you to not use Supersonic. I know it's tempting, but if you go even a little too fast, you're going off the map, sorry. The colors in this stage don't look that appealing, but I can see that as being on purpose. It is the penultimate stage before the final boss, so I won't dock points for that. But the music was a factor, and it's safe to say that it's the worst level theme in Sonic 2. I hate being negative, but I have to. Again, this zone is on the bottom 3. So with that out of the way, let's get into the ranking. So there's no doubt this is the best game yet. I also hold strongly against my opinions. Anyways, on to the next game. This is going to be our longest game yet, coming in at a whopping 14 zones. I decided to combine Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles into one, as that is how it was originally supposed to go. I always go back and forth on whether Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 is better, and I think yapping about these zones is going to give me an understanding of that. This video is already long enough, and I still have this game and Sonic Mania to do afterwards, so I think we should jump right into the first level. Angel Island is the perfect introduction level in a classic Sonic game. It provides a good amount of context to the story of Sonic 3 while also giving the player a fun time. First off, the music is something else, and I mean that in a good way. But no means that this game's soundtrack missed the mark, unless we're talking about the replacement music, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Act 1 takes place inside a lush green area, following the trend of grassy and natural zones settings in previous games had. But once it gets to Act 2, the whole area is on fire, and it changes the tone really quickly. Speaking of which, I forgot to mention something. Sonic 3 introduces the idea of having 2 acts, the first act being whatever location it is, and the second shaking things up a bit. They've also added a mini boss at the end of the first act, which beefens up the zones, I think. This level is perfect for high-speed action and some slower platforming moments to catch your breath. It does sometimes suck though. When doing my playthroughs, I spend the majority of this zone mainly finding all the giant rings and getting all the Chaos Emeralds. Supersonic is very useful in this game, so it's worth it, but trust me, it's not the fun part. Despite that fact, I probably won't count it as an optional anyway. I just wanted to make that clear. That's what I spend 7 minutes doing. This is an awesome zone, and I like how both bosses line up with the whole story of the game near the top. Now it's time for Hydrocity, or Hydro City? I'm sticking with Hydrocity. You guys can hate on me in the comments for it. I won't care too much. Okay, so when I was a bit younger and was first playing the classic Sonic games, I could never seem to get past any of the second zones. I struggled with Marble, was tormented by Chemical Plant, both of them, but here, that wasn't the case. Because Hydrocity, whatever you want to call it zone, was the first second level I got past. Now, that may not seem like much, but trust me, if you know the pain, then you know the pain. This zone learned from all the previous water levels and gave this one tons of slopes in the water, and if you wanted to, you could just skip the water almost entirely, and that is why this zone is fantastic. Now, Marble Garden is an interesting one. I never really liked this one, so my smile left on my face when the last two quickly turned into an unidentified expression. Marble Garden Zone is fine. It's not bad by any means, but it definitely slows the pace down after a much more energetic earlier levels. The zone's gimmicks like the spinning tops and digging platforms are interesting, but they don't exactly scream fast-paced Sonic. The level leans heavily into verticality and can be disorienting at times. It's easy to get lost or feel like you're not making progress, especially in Act 2. There's a weird amount of stop-and-go platforming that can clash with most people want out of a Sonic level, but visually it's great. great. The sunset skies, ancient ruins, and layered backgrounds make it stand out. The aesthetic gives the zone a lot more character than it probably deserves. And the music, while not the most iconic, does fit the slower, mysterious tone really well. So overall, it's a decent level. Not a favorite, but not one I dread replaying either. It's a solid mid-tier zone that looks better than it plays. Carnival Night Zone is such a vibe. Right from the start, the visuals are popping, colorful lights, flashy signs, and a background that makes the whole level feel like you're trapped inside some kind of never-ending festival. The music is catchy too, super upbeat, but with this weird, slightly off-putting edge that somehow works. It feels like you're in a funhouse, but also maybe like you're being watched. The level itself has a ton of personality. Bouncy floors, air cannons, rotating cylinders. It's just full of weird gimmicks that make it stand out. And for a while, you're having fun. It's one of the more creative zones in the game, and when it leans into that playful chaos in a way only Sonic 3 really nails. But then there's the barrel. You know the one. The red and white barrel of doom. It's infamous at this point. Unless someone told you the secret, you probably spent way too long trying to jump on it, spin dash, or do anything to make it move. But nope, the trick was to press up and down. No indication, no tutorial, just pure trial and error, frustration. It stops the level dead in its tracks, and for something that's supposed to be a party zone, it's where a lot of childhood joy went to die. And weirdly, despite all the color and movement, Carnival Night Zone kinda creeps me out. There's no audience, no characters, no background activity, just you, the player, completely alone in this bright, chaotic area. It's like a liminal space disguised as a theme park. You're not supposed to be here. It feels abandoned even though the lights are still on. Still, despite all that, or maybe because of it, it sticks with me. It's a memorable, creative level that captures Sonic 3's experimental energy really well. A little confusing, kind of unsettling, but ultimately very cool. Getting into this zone was a treat. Ice Cap Zone is straight up cool, and yes, pun fully intended. From the moment the level starts, it drops you straight into one of the most stylish intros in Sonic history. Sonic bursts out of an ice cave onto a snowboard, like he's in some 90s extreme sports commercial. It's dramatic. It's slick. It makes you feel like you're playing the coolest game ever made. What was that about? Now, let's talk about the music. The track is so smooth, it might as well be butter on ice. It doesn't sound like it belongs on an ice level, and that's what makes it work. It's chill, but in a way that only makes you want to go fast. The zone's gimmick never feels like they're there for show. They all fit. The level teaches you how to deal with slippery momentum, time blocks, and ice physics without it feeling like a lecture. It's immersive and engaging, even when you fall into a bottomless pit because the floor thought it'd be funny to vanish. Classic. In short, Ice Cap is one of those rare stages that nails vibe, gameplay, and presentation all at once. And it's fun, immersive, and has just enough what the heck is happening energy to keep it interesting. 10 out of 10, would snowboard through again. Now, Launch Base Zone could have easily fallen into the trap all the previous games did, and that was all of their final levels were not their best. Sonic 1 has no explanation, Sonic 2 fell off, and Sonic CD tried their best but ultimately failed, so I'm glad to say that that's not the case this time. Launch Base doesn't just feel like a final zone, it acts like one. The pacing ramps up, the music gets tenser, and there's a sense of urgency in the background visuals, like you're truly closing in on something big. It's busy but not cluttered. There's a clarity in the chaos that makes it exciting instead of overwhelming. The level gimmicks are turned just right. You've got rotating platforms, elevators, laser traps, and that bizarre spinning wheel thing that flings you around. But it all flows well together. Unlike earlier final zones in the series, it doesn't feel like the level is fighting against you. Instead, it feels like the game is giving you one last challenge with all the tools you've learned up to this point. Visually, it's distinct. There's something about that industrial setting mixed with the ocean backdrop that makes the entire zone feel grounded, like it's part of a real place instead of just another abstract level. It's also the only zone that really shows Eggman's base mid-operation. Machines whirring, cannons firing, structures being built. You're running through something in progress, not being abandoned. Now, this is the end of the first half of Sonic 3. I've decided to include Sonic and Knuckles into Sonic 3 as well, so we'll just keep going on. Great zone! Now, we've made it to the second half of the game. While not as good as the first, having some weaker zones, I'd say it's still really solid, especially this first level. Mushroom Hill Zone sets the tone right away with bouncy, energetic design and some fun movement gimmicks. The springs hidden in mushrooms, the pulleys, the swinging vines, it's all classic Sonic platforming, but with a fresh coat of forest paint. It's playful without being annoying, and the pacing stays smooth throughout. This zone really has a really nice transition between acts. Act 2 shifts into an orange autumn, and it's subtle enough that you might not notice at first, but once you do, it's hard not to appreciate it. It gives the level a sense of progression that's rare in Sonic stages, and makes the zone feel alive. It's not the flashiest or most intense zone, but it doesn't need to be. Mushroom Hill is confident in its identity, and makes a strong first impression for Sonic and Knuckles half of the game. Flying Battery Zone makes a strong first impression. The music is intense and mechanical, with a rhythm that instantly locks you into the zone's mood. Visually, it's one of the cooler industrial areas in the series. Dark skies, flashing lights, and a massive airship interior that feels alive and dangerous. There's definitely an atmosphere here, and it feels like you're infiltrating something big. But once the shine wears off, the level starts to drag. The layout is filled with cheap hazards, crammed sections, and gimmicks that slow you down more than they challenge you. You'll be bouncing between walls, climbing magnetic ceilings, getting squished by moving platforms, and then thrown into a bottomless pit because you missed the leap you couldn't even see. It's not hard in a satisfying way, it's just kind of annoying. The worst offenders are the traps that kill your momentum. Sonic's all about speed, and Flying Battery constantly interrupts you with fans that push you back, spike walls that inch towards you, and those rotating drums that take forever to cycle. Even when you are moving fast, it often straight into danger. The zone constantly punishes you for trying to play the way Sonic is meant to be played. It's not a bad level, just frustrating. There's a strong foundation here, and the aesthetic does a lot of the heavy lifting. But when it comes to actual gameplay, Flying Battery feels like it's trying a little too hard to be clever. It ends up being tedious instead. Sandopolis Zone is one of those levels that makes you stop and ask, wait, how did we get here? After the sleek precision of Flying Battery, it's jarring to be dropped into a desert tomb that feels like the pace of the game is just cut in half. And not in a good, dramatic way, more like in a slog way. The problems start early. Act 1 introduces you to the sand sinking gimmick, and from there, it's all pushing blocks, or dodging slow crushers, and getting stuck in quicksand that actively punishes movement. Everything in this level feels designed to slow you down. There's no satisfying momentum or clever navigation, just a lot of carefully timed repetitive platforming. The buttons you need to push to progress feel like chores, and every block pushing section brings the pace to a grinding halt. It's the kind of level that makes you wonder if the game forgot you were playing Sonic. And then there's Act 2. Oh boy, Act 2. Act 2 is where things go from slow to borderline hostile. You're now in a haunted pyramid, and ghosts start spawning if you don't keep hitting light switches. It's a neat idea in theory, sure. Light versus darkness, time pressure, spooky enemies, but in execution, it becomes incredibly tedious. The ghosts get more aggressive the longer you wait, which sounds dynamic, but actually just encourages you to stop playing the level normally and constantly hunt down switches. The fun loop of running, jumping, and platforming is shoved aside in favor of flicking lights and on and off, like a stressed out homeowner during a power outage. That was a horrible joke. Worse still, the ghost mechanic doesn't add challenge to the fun way, it just adds stress. At its worst, Sandopolis feels like a spiritual cousin of Marble Zone from Sonic 1. Slow, maze-like, full of hazards that stop momentum, and overly reliant on tedious mechanics. As you can tell, I'm not really the biggest fan of this zone, but the music's good, so I guess we can move on. Lava Reef stands out as one of Sonic 3 and Knuckles' most memorable and well-crafted levels, perfectly balancing pace, challenge, and atmosphere. From the moment you enter its molten caverns, the zone immediately commands attention, and a sense of urgency and danger feels fitting for the late game stages. The speed in Lava Reef Zone is a highlight. The level encourages flow, rewarding quick reflexes and precise platforming without ever feeling unfair. The gimmicks are a complement to the level's intense vibe rather than disrupt it. The hot springs that propel Sonic Sonic upward, the rotating platforms over lava pits, and the bubbling magma hazards all fit naturally within the environment and add a variety without dragging the pace down. In particular, the magma rising mechanic is certain sections forces you to keep moving, creating moments of genuine tension that feel earned rather than forced. It's a level that demands both speed and caution in equal measure. Enemies in Lava Reef Zone also stand out for their variety and placement. The zone is packed with lava-themed badniks that look right at home with this fiery setting. They're challenging without being overwhelming, and their patterns often encourage creative solutions, sometimes requiring speed to dodge, other times precise timing to take them out, to contribute to the zone's overall feeling of danger while keeping the gameplay dynamic. Visually, Lava Reef Zone is striking. Act 1's cavernous lava-filled tunnels are beautifully rendered, with glowing molten locks and bubbling pools that create a rich and immersive environment. The transition to Act 2's volcanic surface is a great shift in atmosphere, offering a more open, fiery landscape with erupting geysers and distant lava flows, as well as much more crystalline structures. Both acts feel connected yet distinct, providing a satisfying sense of progression and scale. It is a fitting challenge near the end of the game and remains one of the most iconic zones in the Sonic series. It strikes a perfect balance between speed, strategy, and storytelling, making it a true highlight of the game. Moving on. No, not the one from Sonic 2. This zone works mainly for story purposes, but has some gameplay. It's again mainly used to clear up some stuff. This is the exact moment where Knuckles realizes Eggman has been toying with him the whole time. Oh no! And he's absent, that cruel man. Knuckles also decides to help you out from here. This is really cool for the story, but it's hard for me to rank it as there isn't much to go off of. It looks cool, and when you are playing, it's still fun. Even though this zone has only one act, this single act is the perfect combination of storytelling and being a fun zone all around. Sky Sanctuary is one of those iconic Sonic moments that captures the perfect blend of beauty, challenge, and nostalgia, even though it's the only one act in the original Sonic and Knuckles game. That makes it so memorable to how it feels like a majestic climax before the final showdown. Visually, it looks great. The floating ruins and the serene sky background create a unique atmosphere of ancient mystery mixed with soaring freedom. The lush greenery combined with the crumbling stone structures give it a sense of lost civilization suspended in the clouds. It's both peaceful and thrilling to run through, and the sense of height adds an extra layer of excitement. The music complements the visuals perfectly. It's uplifting, energetic, and that signature Sonic melody that makes you want to keep moving forward and explore every nook. It's one of those tracks that sticks with you long after you played, reinforcing the feeling of being sacred, otherworldly place. Gimmicks like the disappearing platforms and the tricky jumps keep the gameplay fresh and engaging without being overwhelming. They attest to your timing and precision, which makes finally clearing the level feel really rewarding. The blend of speed and platforming here is just right. And then there's the Mecha Sonic fight, which is just so cool. Facing off against Mecha Sonic here feels like a real climax. The tension ramps up, the stakes feel higher, and the battle itself is a fun twist on a typical boss fight. It's got that good balance of challenge and spectacle, making you like the zone even more. Overall, Sky Sanctuary is beautiful, thrilling, and an unforgettable experience. I really like this zone too. It was pretty fun. You don't know how tiring it was to just sit around all day and playing Sonic. Gosh. The final level in Sonic 3 and Knuckles stands out as one of the best climaxes in the entire Sonic series, even if it is not without its flaws. What makes it so memorable is the sheer scale and intensity of the experience. It feels like the ultimate showdown between Sonic and Eggman, packed with high stakes and big set pieces. Visually, the industrial mechanical environment perfectly contrasts that natural levels that came before. The metallic platforms, conveyor belts, and robotic enemies give it a menacing vibe, underscoring that you've kept Eggman's fortress. The sense of urgency ramps up as you navigate tricky jumps and hazards, though some sections slow down the pacing a bit and can get a bit confusing, which slightly disrupts the flow. The music here is epic and tense, adding to the feeling that this is it, the final battle before everything. It pushes you forward and isn't as instantly catchy as some other themes, making it more atmospheric than upbeat. The stage culminates to the iconic battle against a giant flying robot. While it's exciting and visually immersive, the fight itself can drag and feel a bit repetitive compared to earlier, tighter boss battles. The controls can get tricky and some players find it frustrating rather than thrilling. Despite these small downsides, the overall experience is hugely satisfying. The levels successfully builds tension and delivers on a grand memorable finale. The combination of challenging platforming, cool robotic design, and the sheer scale of the boss fight makes it a standout final level, one that still ranks high amongst the rest. Doomsday Zone, the Doomsday Zone, is the true final zone of the game. I originally wasn't going to count it, but the wiki had it listed, so I'm going off that. It can be a little slow at times, the boss I mean, but playing through it is exhilarating. I can't lie about that. Going through the space as Super or Hypersonic is a blast. However, it is optional. You don't have to do it, but I'd advise you at least try it once. It's not the greatest or anything, but you'll have fun with it, unless you rage. And with that, here's the ranking for Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This was the most difficult game to rank so far, and it already was based on sheer amount alone, but the majority were really great. I guess I gotta break the curse now. By that I mean whether Sonic 2 or Sonic 3 is better. And I gotta go with Sonic 2 on this one. For me, it felt like the first half of this game was going off greatly, but the second quickly fell off. However, it did start to pick up near the end with Lava Reef. I wonder how controversial this list is gonna be. And keep in mind, if some of these do end up changing their listings during the final overall ranking, then it's just because I probably changed my mind a bit. But this was a great game, and we have one more before we can get this thing over with. And this was the one I've been waiting for this whole time. Sonic Mania is mine and many others' favorite classic Sonic game. It has the best graphics, the best music, visuals, zones, bosses, personality, and everything in between. And so it's going to be difficult to rank this game's zones. Most of the zones are remastered versions of previous ones, but they shake things up so much that I'll count them. So I'm not going to keep you guys waiting much longer. I'm not going to do encore modes since they are slightly different zones with the recolors. If you want the ranking for them, then just use this game's ranking, as they will take the same places. So without further ado, let's get into it. Green Hill Zone. Again, you'd think we'd be tired of seeing this place by now, but Mania doesn't just bring it back, it reinvents it. This isn't just the first level of another Sonic game. This is Green Hill Zone, a celebration. The moment you drop in, you feel it. The colors are brighter, the animation is smoother, the music, remixed with pure energy, welcomes you home while pushing you forward. But it's not just nostalgia, it's evolution. Act 1 starts out how you'd expect, but it quickly branches off. New routes, new secrets, and a tight level design that rewards speed and exploration. Then comes Act 2, and this is where things get wild. Suddenly you're a whole new water section underneath the map. You're flying through zip lines, swinging over spikes, surfing across waterfalls. There's so much variety packed in. It doesn't feel like the same zone anymore. The versions of Green Hill best make the original and cranks him to 11. And let's talk about that boss fight. Eggman shows up in the Death Egg robot for the first zone. It's absurd, and it works. It tells you this isn't just a tribute to the past. This is a game that's here to surprise you. Even though the game's been out for 7 years, almost 8, gosh. Green Hill Zone and Sonic Mania proves that you can bring something back and still make it feel new. Chemical Plant is back again, and this time it is all the improved feature Green Hill had. The first act is really fast paced. It does still have the problem that this zone had in Sonic 2 where it made the difficulty curve a little wonky, but it's fun, so shut up about it. Like I said, Act 1 is great. The enemy placement's good, and the finding your own way around the level instead of just going fast will reward you with all kinds of stuff. I spend the majority of Green Hill Zone grinding extra lives just in case things got risky near the end. This act also has the dreaded water section. Luckily, I was able to survive it, but it's almost like they brought it back like a joke. Not funny, dude. But Act 2 is where I think things get real. The music, the background, the goo, everything has come together to make a masterpiece. I like all the new mechanics added too. Like again, the goo or these things, whatever you call them. And the boss is really unique. Instead of hitting something, you verse Eggman in a battle with Puyo Puyo. Or Dr. Robotnik's mean bean machine. And all around, this zone keeps a consistent difficulty with its level design. It keeps you going, but mostly acts as a warning to say, hey, get out of here. Only real Sonic players are allowed, while still making it accessible to those newer players. The Act 1 boss is nothing special, but what does that even add? Because Chemical Plant is already great, it's definitely a top 5 or 6 in this game, but there are much better things to come. Speaking of which... Studiopolis were used as a big part in Mania's advertisement and even development, as it was the first zone the team would make to prove they could make something great. It's also the first original zone in this game, and acts as sort of a casino level for it too. Studiopolis takes place in a huge Hollywood-esque city, full of film supplies and cameras. This zone really has a lot of personality. I love the color choice they use here. It really seems to tone well. I also like that it mixes some good platforming with some very fast moments. The music is also peak. The first act soundtrack I probably like more, but both are great. I play the zone's theme in the background as I speak during each ranking. The first act's boss I tend to struggle with for some reason, but this time it only took me 2 tries. There was a lot less pressure from extra life grinding I did at the start. Act 2's boss and zone as a whole isn't as good as the first act, but Act 2 takes place inside of a movie studio theater, and tons of gimmicks centered around that. Still fantastic, but less in a way. Again, when I say something is good in Mania terms, it really is awesome. So, Flying Battery is a zone that could have completely gone south. If you remember, I didn't like FB from Sonic 3 at all that much, so why do I like it here? Well, I suppose I'll stop beating around the bush. First of all, the level never really tries spamming you with much of anything. It's surprisingly controlled, but that just may be because of the original, it was a much later zone, so the difficulty was probably tuned down to make it suitable this early on. Makes sense. FB's music is also phenomenal. I feel like I enjoy Act 2's soundtrack better, just because there are more variety in the song compared to the first one. Act 2 shakes things up by having the level take place somewhere outside during a huge thunderstorm. It adds a nice visual and neat change up. I used to think the stains on the walls were from erosion and rusting, but finding out it was camouflage made much more sense. It also sank in the fact that we're not supposed to be on this ship. I like how we enter this zone because the news said so. That's oddly realistic. The first act boss, again, nothing too special. You just kind of wait and then spam. But Act 2 is a bit slower. I used to get so mad at this zone because of this one boss. Now that I'm able to beat it, all I can say is that it takes up too much time. It's really well designed, but dragged out by a smidge. Honestly, this zone might be better than Green Hill. Press Garden is the second original zone in this game, and I know it's a bit early, but this might be my favorite zone yet. Not just in this game, but the overall ranking too. That might change as I keep going back and forth on whether Studiopolis or this zone is better, so the top spot will be whatever I'm feeling like at that moment, but really they are interchangeable. Anyways, this zone is fantastic. It starts off in a huge tabloid junction factory thingy, and you can see how busy it is. And if you read the newspapers, it's even more fun. I keep forgetting to, so I'll mention it now. The references in this game are insane. It can be a gimmick or a straight callback, but they are sprinkled throughout this whole thing. Act 2 takes place outside with some beautiful cherry blossom trees. Seriously, whose idea was that? We should get them a raise now. Press Garden has tons of good level design and cool interesting gimmicks and mechanics used, and it really does immerse you in the level, especially Act 2. It's stunning. But if you ever heard me say it, it's likely someone else has glazed this zone too, so I'm not going to keep you waiting for the other zones. Yes, the other zones are also fantastic, and I know saying it now is a little anticlimactic, but like I said before, it's going to be at top of both lists. End of conversation. This is another reimagined zone, and by this point you all know them are going to be better than the originals in every way, and this one is no different. The problem with Sonic CD's version, in my opinion, was that it set aside the exploration and time travel for pure speed, and while it was nice, it felt off in that game. So that's why I feel like it works much better in Mania. The zone is fast, and it wants you to know that. Act 1 is a bit calmer, but once you reach Act 2, you're in non-stop motion, which is how it should be most of the time. I like how you go from present to the future. It adds more CD elements into this game. Mania definitely chose favorites when it came to which zones they wanted to remaster. The best part of this zone though is the improved Metal Sonic race / fight. You start racing him and then you try to hit him with all these silver Sonics. Then you fight him with this Giga form. It's all cool. The one from CD, while more charming than anything, feels like a small lap, while this one is a marathon. I do prefer it, and you might not agree with me on that, but it's just my opinion. I cannot stress that enough. We also get some clues on the plot. Ooh. I'm not even gonna make the pronunciation joke again. Hydrocity, Hydro City. This zone is truly fantastic, like every other zone in this darn game. It takes what is already a great water stage from Sonic 3, it makes it better tenfold. It takes what already worked and makes it much more polished. But the main thing with Mania is that it really shines when it adds something new, something we haven't seen before. Those things being the first and second act bosses. In Act 1's boss, you take control of Eggman's machine, as he desperately plants bombs. Watching him being levitated by the water, not getting his head chopped off from the propellers gets me every time. Act 2 has a much more panicky tone. You have to hit these bombs and make Eggman run into them. If on a lap you don't make him hit one, you don't get an air bubble. So it's crucial you do, because this boss takes place underwater. Once you get past the tricky section, all you have to do is survive the stress test, something all GD players can relate to. Anyway, those are just the bosses. It's a rare case where I enjoy the first boss over the second. This zone looks great, has great music, and has so much cool stuff in it that I just have to tell you to play it for yourself, or go play it again even if you have before. And if you don't have the game yourself, buy it. It's only 20 bucks, unlike the 60 something we're seeing today. Mirachaloon is great and all, but it's sad to say that it could have been the best zone in this game by far. It could have, if only the first act wasn't a side-scroller. Yes, Act 1 is a side-scroller, just like Sky Chase Zone from Sonic 2, and you already know how I feel about that. It's not as offensively bad, there is still some joy to be had here, like the part where you go on the train from Oil Ocean, or when you fight the giant caterpillar boss. That's all cool, but for the majority of it, you have to play with the level's rules, not your own. It's like the game is breaking down its own rules just to reference a past level that freaking sucks. But Act 2 is a complete opposite of that. The level design, the music, the pixel art, the enemies, the boss, the flow, the gimmicks, the new mechanics, it can go on and on. It just sucks that the first zone drags it down a bit, making it the weakest unique level in the game. It is cool that this is what could have been a scrap zone from Sonic 2, or a scrapped one from Sonic CD Desert Dazzle, but I'm glad we got much better version here. Here we are, Oil Ocean Zone, again. My favorite part about this remaster has to be the second act. Now, I'm not going to be completely brushed past Act 1, so I'll briefly cover it now. Act 1 is an almost identical remake from the one in Sonic 2, with some minor improvements to make it a bit more enjoyable. The music rocks, and so do the visuals. The boss sucks, it's way too easy for something this far into the game, but it is what it is. Like I said, Act 2 is where the zone really shines through. The game's mechanics of pulling switches is similar to Sandopolis, but here it doesn't disrupt the pace too much, while making it urgent for one to pull every 15 seconds. It can get a bit in the way, but still fun at times. Lighting the oil on fire, the dense background, and going underneath the soil ocean is also pretty cool. The zone's boss is fun and offers a lot of cool differences, this time being a giant octopus batman. But for this playthrough, it was no sweat. While Oil Ocean may be one of the weaker zones in Sonic Mania, it still is fantastic, and should be remembered for how it improved on the original. Lava Reef Zone in Sonic Mania is a comeback done right. Originally a late game classic in Sonic & Knuckles, this remastered version doesn't look better, it plays better. The lava glows, the rocks crumble in real time, and the parallax scrolling gives off this underground inferno real depth. Why am I talking like this? But it's the new stuff that definitely sets it apart. Act 1 keeps the heat but adds dynamic lava falls, drill crushers, and fire-powered launchers that make the whole zone feel alive. And then Act 2, total shift, hauntingly good remix of the original theme. It almost sounds somewhat nostalgic. It's not just a visual switch. It changes how you move. More platforms, more vertical routes, more ways to explore, and the boss? A clever twist on the old Flame-mobile, now surrounded by hazard puzzles that make you think. Lava Reef in Mania doesn't rely on nostalgia unless it's Act 2's music, it evolves it, and somehow it ends up being even better than the original. This one will be going near the top. Metallic Madness in Sonic Mania is the best kind of redemption arc. What was once a visually impressive but awkward final zone in Sonic CD is now one of the most creative, polished, and mechanically diverse zones in the game. Let's start off with the original. Sonic CD's Metallic Madness has atmosphere, sure, but it was cluttered. The level layout was maze-like to a fault. Pacing was constantly interrupted by stop-and-go platforming, and enemy placement often felt unfair more than challenging. It looked cool, but didn't play as cool. Now, enter Sonic Mania. Same zone name, game, same core aesthetic, but now it's cleaner, smarter, and full of brilliant new ideas. Act 1 is all about vertical movement, shrieking platforms, and spinning gear wheels that challenge your timing without slowing you down. There's a clear flow of how you have to move, and multi-layered level design rewards players and how they want to explore, but doesn't punish those who stick to the main path. It feels like what CD was going for, finally realized. But Act 2, that's where this ode really shines. Not only do you get hit with a smooth saxophone, but this is where the section where it really just is not a gimmick. It changes how you see and interact with the level. Suddenly everything's huge. Enemies tower over you, spikes feel lethal, and you're squeezing through tiny gaps that were nothing before. It's a surprise mechanic, but it never overstays its welcome. It's fun, it's fresh, and most importantly, it fits. If you don't know what I'm talking about the mini Sonic. Yeah, I love the mini Sonic. In a game built in reinvention, Metallic Madness is proof that even the weakest links in Sonic's history can be reforged into gold. Boy, I know that's going to be controversial. Titanic Monarch Zone is the final zone in the game. It's the best final zone at that. In classic Sonic games, of course, it's a mix of Scrap Brain and Death Egg Zone. No, but seriously, some of these parts look nearly identical. But as far as the zone itself, I think it's one of the best, probably in my top 5 overall. This zone used to be really hard for me, but as I kept going on, it got easier and got better. It was a great time replaying it too. You play inside the Titanic Monarch, a giant monarch built by Eggman himself, as a base for him in the hard-boiled heavies. These guys. It has tons of traps, spikage, and enemies everywhere, as well as some precise timings for things that crush you, and many other instances of pure agony. But that's not all. This zone has some bosses too. The first act's boss isn't anything too special, it's just a red eye from Sonic 3, now known as a Crimson Eye. But Act 2 completely changes things up. You have to go through each one of these 4 portals, and unlock a room that leads to the final boss. Eggman, not gonna lie, looks kinda dumb. The boss, while not the hardest thing ever, can be a bit challenging, especially if time is your main concern. Luckily, I'm experienced, so I beat it in the first try, but I'm no longer going to endlessly replay this mode for this one. Titanic Monarch Zone is a perfect blend of speed and final level annoyances that make me adore it, honestly. Again, probably in my top 5 favorites, and no, there's nothing controversial I'm saying. Also, the music is banging. Here's the definitive ranking for Sonic Mania. So, with that out of the way, we have just reviewed and ranked every classic Sonic zone ever. Now it's time to the full list of all the zones we've covered so far. Again, I cannot stress enough that this is just my opinion, so don't be toxic about it in the comments. I'm warning you. There are going to be a few controversial decisions, but I'm overall very confident in the ranking. So without further ado, at the bottom of the list we have Labyrinth Zone, Sky Chase, Wacky Workbench, Flying Battery, Metropolis, Wing Fortress, Hidden Palace, Sonic 3, Marble Zone, Sandopolis Zone, Scrap Brain, Metallic Madness, Tidal Tempest, Spring Yard, Stardust Speedway, The Doomsday Zone, Death Egg, Marble Garden, Aquatic Ruin, Hilltop, Hidden Palace, Oil Ocean, Mystic Cave, Mushroom Hill, Lava Reef, Collision Chaos, Green Hill, Angel Island, Chemical Plant, Green Hill Zone, Sonic Mania, Mirage Saloon, Oil Ocean, Sonic Mania, Emerald Hill Zone, Casino Night, Hydro City, Palm Tree Panic, Carnival Night, Launch Base, Quartz Quadrant, Flying Battery, Sonic Mania, Sky Sanctuary, Stardust Speedway, Sonic Mania, Metallic Madness, Sonic Mania, Lava Reef, Sonic Mania, Chemical Plant, Sonic Mania, Hydrocity, Sonic Mania, Titanic Monarch, Ice Cap Zone, Starlight Zone, Press Garden Zone, and Studiopolis Zone. Okay, that was a lot. And I think I'm happy with the way the list looks. I know some spots will be controversial, but it really had to make sure everything was in the right place. Mainly with Sonic CD, that game got put a lot lower than I was expecting. I guess all the other ones were just better. My top and bottom 5 I'm super confident in. I know it would be a lot to ask you guys to give me your ranking of all 50 of these things. Just give me your top and bottom 3 if you want. Thanks to some of the other videos that inspired the creation of this one. And tell me, what big thing do you want me to rank next? The GD Icon series is its own thing, as this is. Trust me, some videos in the future will be insanely long if you guys choose the right stuff. Anyway, thanks for watching. This video took a while to make, so if you made it to the end, thanks a ton. Even if you clicked on it and immediately clicked off. Thanks. See you in the next one. It's definitely not 3 a.m. right now.